three International Science Committee has a meeting there, and based on that, in 2017, ICOMOS GA in New Delhi, three ISC, they have meeting together, and then we try to enlarge our cooperation or collaboration within different ISC. So we try to organize a joint meeting in Sydney. However, due to some reason, of course, all of us can understand. So we have to trans this meeting into the webinar meeting. That's what we are holding today. And the sorry, I lost my screen. Sorry. Sorry. And I'll make a report for the 6 ISC. We have received several submission of papers, and 59 of them were accepted from 28 countries. And we have an online present all these papers, which has with 27 full paper and 32 abstract, and already online. And after the joint meeting today, we will have another publication for the proceeding, which has with the ISBN. And besides that, I have to special thanks to the contributors who they provide an excellent video presentation for us. Now you can see, visit the website of this 6 ISC joint meeting, and to see their presentations, video presentations. And for today, we have, besides that, I have to say that maybe some participants are not, contributors are not so familiar with how to operate or where we put this video presentation. So we will resend a link to all the authors, contributors, and the participants, the video presentation. Sorry for the inconvenience. And by the way, for today, the joint meeting, we have registered audience nearly 300 and over 60 countries. And this is the video of the oral presentations and the posters. And now you can see this online. And after that, we will prepare official publication with ISBN to. So thank you very much. Now I'll invite our special guest to have the opening remark for this meeting. The first is the president of the ICOMOS, Toshi Kono.
Thank you, Alex. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here today. And it's a great honor and pleasure to be with you together. ISCs are the vehicles of leadership of ICOMOS in the heritage community. Escarsa Principles states in its Article 1, ICOMOS expects the ISCs to be at the heart of scientific inquiry and exchange in the domains. At the same time, the Escarsa Principles continues that ICOMOS expects the ISCs to share knowledge among them to foster a multidisciplinary approach to heritage protection and management in fulfillment of the goals of ICOMOS as stated in Article 5B of its statutes. Well, this is now the Article 4B of the new statutes. Quote, gather, study, and disseminate information concerning principles, techniques, and policies related to heritage protection. Today's webinar is a perfect example to represent this principle. And to my limited knowledge, there have not been so many cases like this. I myself once proposed to hold a joint meeting with Ictc and Preparedness when we had a meeting in Korea. The result was very satisfactory, but I have to confess that the preparation took more time and the coordination work were much more. So it is very amazing to me that 6 ISCs get together and not only one time, but also continuously they organize this event. It is pretty amazing. And it is very unfortunate that the real meeting was canceled due to COVID-19, but I express my sincere gratitude to those colleagues who organized today's webinar, reflecting the original intention. And as we experienced that the Markers event from Sydney was a big success. So I can easily imagine that this will be a big success again. And not only the outcome of this webinar, but also the know-how and experience are very variable for all ICOMOS family members. So please do disseminate the outcomes and also the methodologies how to do it. I wish you very fruitful discussions, and I'm looking very much forward to very rich outcomes of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toshi, and thank you for your remark and your encouragement. And I suppose to proceed this kind of idea is every ICOMOS member should do it. That's what we think about it. Thank you so much. And the second remark is Dr. Shi Guolong from Taiwan. He is an international member of the ICOMOS.
深感荣幸跟感谢，同时对主办单位以风险管理 推进文化资产的共同未来为主题的前瞻性的安排和引荐，是让个人最高的敬佩。台湾是位于太平洋上北回归线通过的岛屿，是台风、地震与豪雨频繁发生的地区，加上近年来全球极端气候的变迁、新冠肺炎疫情的影响，文化资产所遭受的自然与人为威胁也越来越严峻。所以我们回顾1999年，在台湾发生了100年一次的921大地震，这也是台湾文化资产保存发展的重要转捩点。因为这次的灾害，让我们国人深深体认到文化资产保存的重要性，也因此防灾工作一直是我们文化资产主管部门业务的重要指标。那因而建立了文化资产国家的防灾体系，所以我们也促成了相关资源的整合，一起来落实文化资产的守护工作。作为 ICOMOS 的国际会员，我们踊跃的支持 ICOMOS 以及 ICTC 的各项活动。近年来，我们参与了由黑体保护研究所与世界纪念物基金会所推动的 Ictc 文字的保存专案，ARK 500的数位记录计划，也与马来西亚乔治市世界遗产机构签署 MOU， 于2019年将彩绘修复技术输出到马来西亚适宜的槟城文山场，进行文山场的量防彩绘的损害科学检测跟修复工作，而且也办理了双边人才培育的交流课程。此外，我们也积极参与国际水文化资产的守护工作。我们在2019年台湾嘉义市举行的水文化国际研讨会，让台湾参与了ICOMOS 的水文资科学委员会的随身作业，并发表台湾宣言。今年11月，我们将与荷兰合作办理台荷水文化资产国际论坛暨文件展。我们期盼能够透过水文化保存经验的展示，来呼吁各界来关注水文化资产保存对应全球气候变迁的重要性。我们也期待与各位国际伙伴能展开更多的合作交流机会。文化资产是各地历史文化的载体，站在地球村的立场，它是全人类共同拥有的宝藏。本次6个 ICTC 联合线上会议，以风险管理推进文化资产的共同未来为主题，提示了大家应该不分彼此，来共同守护文化资产的价值。我们更希望能够透过经验交流跟分享，让大家不必再经历灾害才找到防范的方法，而能够借用他处的经验，也能够进行妥善的管理与防范，来促进文化资产的永续发展。这也将是本次会议最重要的贡献。最后，仅代表台湾文化资产的大家庭，预祝本次线上会议圆满成功，更祝福各位以你们所爱的家人朋友，在此一个全球防疫的关键时刻，保持健康喜乐。谢谢大家的参与，谢谢。
Thanks to the Dr. Toshikono and Dr. Shi's opening remark. Then we'll proceed to our presentation today. As you know, the main theme of this meeting is the advanced presentation from ISC and 4 commenters to feedback the presentation. So I would like to invited our first keynote speaker, Professor Mario Santana, to make his keynote speech. Of course, you all of you know Mario Santana very well. Mario, please.
Thank you, Alex, for giving me the opportunity to present in this very distinguished platform. Can you see my presentation? Chicono, our esteemed IC presidents, and our distinguished panelists and attendees for this opportunity. But I also want to acknowledge the great work of Alex Jen and his team in putting this second meeting all together. I know it hasn't been easy, and they have very resilient to go through the impact of COVID and organize this event and have all of us together today in this very early morning in Ottawa, and also late evening for many people. We are all together, at least via this virtual technology. So this meeting is very important, but I wanted to remind that in 2010, CIPA took the initiative to organize the first meeting in Petra, in Jordan, in which ICAM and the Stone Committee participated. So this is a good tradition that we should continue. And I want to acknowledge the leadership of CIPA to take on this very, let's say, hard, but very rewarding event. So we have 6 representations of committees with different views, with different approaches, but with the common goal of improving the practice of conservation in all its facets. And I think that we have to capitalize on all these human and all these brains to put together a good agenda that will further develop our field, in particular with the impact of COVID. So we have different topics that we're going to be talking today: climate change, cultural heritage, disaster risk management, post-disaster reconstruction, post-disaster management, and community engagement, preparedness, resilience, and recovery. But now we have pandemics. This is the reality. So we have this cycle from the late Robin Letelier, in which he identified the different aspects when we conduct heritage recording. And he always mentioned, we have to have a clear why so we know how we do it. And in this meeting, we have the who. We have a lot of people who have been developing a lot of approaches. And I'm really looking forward to hear the presentation of my colleagues. So in the 60s, there was an unprecedented movement internationally to the safeguard of the Abu Simbel monuments. This was the first symbol of international collaboration to safeguard heritage. What is it that we are doing now to safeguard heritage in the adversity of COVID? 90% of the World Heritage Sites have been partially or completely closed, and they will be again closed because the lockdowns and the increase of the second wave. But due to COVID, we have seen a very large international movement to deploy computer power to understand the spread of the virus, develop treatments, and design strategies. How is this translated into our own field of heritage conservation? A digital revolution has enabled a considerable number of heritage organizations to quickly move their existing digital assets to social media and digital platforms. Also, ICOMOS has been taking the leadership in holding all his statutory meetings using digital technologies. This is a good lesson of how technology is providing us an opportunity to have meetings which are very inclusive. Heritage is under threat without any doubt. One example is what happened in Beirut in recent weeks, or the impact of visitors to sites, which has been, of course, undermined now with COVID because we don't have many visitors, or the physical integrity being affected by changes in climate change patterns. Or again, climate change patterns when we see the examples of Venice, or earthquakes, and incompatible interventions that might damage the integrity of our monuments. Or simply abandonment of heritage places. A great number of areas of heritage are abandoned and they are no longer maintained because they have no life. So how can we bring life to these places? And our field of heritage conservation is enlarging. We have a definition now where we also include monuments and buildings from the 80s and 90s with new material challenges that need to be conserved for present and future generations. So we have pandemics and lockdowns, and we need to adapt to this new reality and try to accept the positive sides that we get from this. So one issue that technology can provide us is to adopt to work from home strategies. And this is an example today. We are all at home giving our presentations and sharing our knowledge with others. Real-time monitoring, for instance, satellite images and other technologies can provide some tools to how do this monitoring of sites, or the examples of the smart cities or the digital twins approaches in which we partially digitize the stock of information that enables us to make decisions. These are things that we should consider in the future. Or in a good, positive reopening phase of adaptation to social distances, also technologies allow us to understand the threats and identify potential hazards from COVID and other issues. So we have technologies such as Corona Tracker smartphone apps. We can assign we can have online bookings to see sites, and we also can have, for instance, semi-autonomous devices to disinfect large surface areas. These are things that we didn't think in the past would come to us, but we have to embrace this new reality. Now, when it comes to the digital world, we always have experiences that we can produce over the internet. These experiences can have low interactivity or high interactivity, and that depends on the number of digital assets that we provide. And this is just a short example of these approaches. So we have digital media, digital platforms, we have tools and accessories. We have this type of digital assets, photograph, audio, video, panorama, 360 images, 360 video, 3D models, and many others. Now, to be able to implement this type of technologies online, we also need to have some technical knowledge required. To prepare and to post on Facebook requires less than to make, for instance, a virtualized environment over the internet. We have different platforms, social media, websites, augmented reality apps, virtual reality apps. Also in this article that I'm quoting here from Forbes, you can see the best 7 World Heritage sites that you can visit without leaving your home. And this is just an example of the array of opportunities that technology can provide. And here we see some of the tools. We have cameras, smartphones, drones, etc. of these tools that can help us in this very challenging time. And now some examples of some platforms. This is Time Looper. This is a platform that allows us to make an interactive presentation using augmented reality in our homes. So we can put the park in the table in our living room, and we can visit a site using some kind of engaging technology through your phone. This is just one example of many others of these applications. Then we have technologies such as, for instance, this Matterport that allows us to record sites and then be able to navigate the site using 360 images. And from those 360 images, we can take some measurements. Or, for instance, this construction site website or a platform that enables construction sites to record their evolution of the intervention using panoramic cameras and then showing this on a platform to reveal the progress of the works. Or, for instance, the use of mixed reality. This is the HoloLens from Microsoft. And in this particular case, the person that is wearing the HoloLens is showing some of the conservation issues. This lady here is showing some of the conservation issues of this painting. And this is broadcast over the internet to other people. And for instance, she could be explaining some of the issues of conservation. So technologies are very interesting. They have certainly a cost, but they also have a lot of opportunities. And these are just examples of some fast sensors where people wear watches to keep social distances, otherwise it will beep. I don't know if we want to keep using this, but it's an opportunity. And then we have this kind of robots to disinfect areas quite fast. Now, we are passing through this kind of approach to cloud services, providing platforms in which we can transfer and we can share our technology. Of course, cloud technologies have their questions about copyright and sharing issues, but these are other aspects of the technology that we can explore. Now, what has been some examples of ICOMOS responses and synergies? SIPA, with their emerging professionals and sustained by the National Trust for Canada and the NSERC Create Heritage Engineering Program, was able to produce 6 activities in which experts share their knowledge about different aspects of technology that could be used by sites and experts in bringing their heritage assets to the digital platforms. And then here we see Joe Calas, who is one of the SIPA emerging professionals, who has been working with ICONEM and is been recording the damage occurred in Beirut after the explosion. And this is a good example of international collaboration and the use of scientific knowledge from our committees and our members, and in particular, our emerging professionals who are currently inheriting all this knowledge of us. Or for instance, this is an example of one of my researchers who is using digital technologies to record the way that traditional timber framing is conducted. And this is another example by the Foundation SCIARC, in which they have been providing training courses to people mapping the Black Matter movement throughout the US, in which they recorded some of the graffitis, the claims of this movement, and they're actively being recorded using photogrammetry. And here you can see one video about it. For the sake of time, I'm not going to show it. If you're interested, I can give you the link later on. So some considerations in the adoption of digital technologies. First, we need to have a collective vision and the needs of the stakeholders, the local communities, custodians, experts, the typology and the extent and the nature of the site, the amount of digital material existing, and could these technologies provide access to visitors that in the past were excluded and provide universal access to sites and create a real sense of place? These are questions that technology should be able to answer. The types of digital infrastructures that the site has, the ability of having qualified labor to do this work, using the cloud, who owns the data, always a big question. And for visual interpretation screens, it's essential to know the target audience to consider the desired levels of interactivity. Now, we have some issues about digital information and digital technologies, and I want to talk a bit about this. We have a heritage professionals engagement that one who owns the information, who keeps and transmits the information. How can be the heritage recording process be transparent? Do we need to share technology and collaborate to make it more affordable, like we are doing now, sharing our knowledge? Do we need to commit to provide training? And do we need to share our knowledge to others? So in the ethical categories, we can find 6 aspects, one related to our conduct. And this is coming from the ICOMOS and the Canadian Association of Heritage Professionals Ethics Principles. Related to, we have to provide best practices, we have to respect cultural heritage, the public and the communities. We have to respect our colleagues in the heritage conservation field. And we need to have the adequate qualifications to conduct our work correctly. And I think that this is one of the important roles of the scientific committees, is to recognize those qualifications and exchange information. So some of the important obligations as professionals is to produce of high quality records and projects, raise awareness, ensure the transmission of information that we are preparing to the present and future generations, to have a clear procedural transparency, sharing technology and collaborated to make it more affordable, commit to provide training and capacity building to fellow and emerging experts. And here again, I want to stress the importance of emerging professionals being integrated in our scientific committees, and participate in professional networks, share experiences, and further development of practice. And this is the exact objective of this 6th ISC meeting today. So some considerations for collaboration. Let's develop an agenda of inter-committee collaboration. For instance, in the revisions of principles and guidelines together, involve more emerging professionals to lead the way into the future, mentoring and giving more opportunities. Adopt more remote office work and remote meetings. We need to be more inclusive for other members that traditionally couldn't attend our meetings because they didn't have the financial means to travel and to pay for their hotels. And let's collaborate with our working groups such as climate change, SDGs, indigenous heritage, right-based approach, and others, because the working groups are a clear example of inter-scientific committees collaboration. So with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'm really looking forward for the next presentations and our discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mario. And I think this very, very important and very orientated keynote speech. And the shared technology collaboration platform, and of course, develop some possibility for the guideline, and do not ever forget the ethical issues, very important. So maybe we can discuss about develop some better idea through the Q&A session. And now let's go to the sixth ISC panelist presentation. First, I would like to invite Professor Stavros, President of SIPA, to make his presentation. Stavros.
Thank you, Alex. Just a second to share my... Is that okay with my slides? Alex, can you see my slides?
Yes, we can see them.
Okay, perfect. So good morning to all. I would also like to thank all the IC panelists, the presidents of the ICs, and ICOMOS for hosting this this joint meeting, and of course Alex here and his team for forming and preparing all this stuff. I want to start, from this slide, because all we are discussing here is about collaboration for safeguarding our cultural heritage. And if you see the roadmap, I mean the timeline, for instance, how SIPA has been raised, let's say from ICOMOS and from ISPRS as an intercommittee and a committee from two international organizations. One, let's say, coming from the cultural heritage domain, and one coming from the technology domain. Since 1969, we're reinforcing collaboration towards protection of cultural heritage. And if I may use, let's say, 1-2 minutes to show a few things about SIPA, what we're doing with respect to our role on international level. We're trying to encourage and promote development of principles and good practices. Of course, targeting recording and documentation and information management of cultural heritage. We are leading and participating in international training programs, and we have as you will see next, our training programs for conservation and informatics, professional students and site personnel. We are advising government bodies, regional authorities, local authorities, non-profit groups, and institutions on tools and technologies and methods for using the technologies towards cultural heritage documentation. To promote an international network of professionals in both the fields of technology and cultural heritage for scientific research, but also applied practical experience, which is very important on the field. And finally, to provide a platform with a biannual international symposium. I mean, we have it every second year, and we will have it next year in Beijing, China. That's the plan. How about the administrative staff? We, as a committee originating from two international bodies, ICOMOS and ISPRS, so we have 7 executives from ICOMOS and 7 from ISPRS. We have 10 honorary members, 104 expert members. We are about to reach, let's say, the 500 regular members. We have sustaining members as well that are supporting us all these years. And the last couple of years, we are putting lots of efforts in reinforcing our emerging professionals. The committee, after the Avila, our last symposium, and the change of our statutes, we have 3 permanent commissions in order to activate more communities across the world with respect to application of recording and documentation and information management, with respect to technologies, and of course, education and dissemination, which is on our concern. Our activities are many, as you can see here. I don't want to say more on that, so as to focus more on the next slides. So cultural heritage documentation, we for us is, and I think we all agree on that, it's an interdisciplinary scientific field. We need them all, and that's why I was talking about collaboration, because it's all is about collaboration. And if you see here, we are so many people this day from different origins and from different backgrounds. We realize, we understand documentation as the profile, as the DNA profile of our cultural heritage, because it gives an excellent background and infrastructure in order to proceed with the preservation of cultural heritage. And of course, as you may know, I mean, documentation is a process. It's a process that needs to be planned, needs to be to collect data, needs to process the data, and of course to exploit and store the data for future developments. With respect to risk management, and risk occurrence is on rare events, is on common events, is on cumulative processes, and in the documentation, let's say, ecosystem, we have the 3 pillars that you see here. We have the sensors and the platforms. We collect the data, and of course, we have the tools and the software in order to proceed with the analysis of data. And you know very well that nowadays we have lots of tools. I mean, with respect to sensors and platforms, from single digital cameras to integrated mobile mapping systems, which can cover from a single small pottery to a city. And everything, I mean, let's say in documentation, it sticks on data. Data is very important in order to make our plans. Data is very important to make our strategies on how to proceed with the preservation. I mean, to safeguard our cultural heritage. And if I may conclude with something, Mario Santana also stressed some of these aspects. I truly believe that we have to reinforce, because we are collaborating. We are under a common house, which is called ICOMOS, but we have to strengthen more and more our collaboration, develop agendas, for instance, on principles and guidelines across our international scientific committees. I realize the involvement of emerging professionals is a very important aspect in order to cultivate more this culture to younger generations, and all of us, we have to do more on that. On SIPA, the last couple of years, we are putting more and more efforts on that. The collaboration also with other working groups. Nowadays, we're 6 here. I think that we can be more because we have a common target, which is cultural heritage and its preservation. And of course, we have to think about World Heritage Convention as we are reaching the 50 years in less than 2 years from now. Thank you, and I'll be at your disposal for on the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Stavros. Thank you for your introduced SIPA and the you highlight the importance of collaboration within different ISCs. Thank you very much. And our second presenter is the president of Ictc, Fergus McLean. Fergus?
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. It's good to be here. And let me just get this going. Okay. So I'd like to say greetings from Canada, President Toshi Kono, esteemed ISC presidents, ICOMOS colleagues, and friends. Nice to have you all here this morning, or what time of day it might be in your part of the world. Specifically, one of the things that obviously we're talking about risk, but one of the big focuses right now, tourism is one of the hardest hit industries in the world, as many of you know. The image on the right shows the Trevi Fountain pre-COVID, and now this is what it pretty well looks like in Rome today when you're starting to see visitors who are coming to Italy and other parts of the world. So obviously it's had a significant impact, and this is going to basically be sort of the premise and guide of my presentation. Now, in terms of the ICTC, we have 180 members ranging from planning, landscape architecture, archaeology, economics, and other professional backgrounds who contribute to different facets of the visitor economy or tourism planning and management. Part of the work we undertake includes study tours, World Heritage tourism assessments, professional and research services for individual partners and clients, and also policy development support when it comes to tourism or destination planning for individual sites, monuments, and also communities. The basis of our operation is the International Cultural Tourism Charter, which was first version was in 1976. The current one we're working with is dated from the Mexico General Assembly in 1999, and we're in the process of updating it to accommodate a number of factors that I'll talk about later. What we do is we also cooperate with other ICOMOS ISCs, Scientific Council, and with national and international agencies and organizations. So we really have sort of a broad brush in terms of who we work with and the work that we undertake. Now, when we start thinking about pre-COVID tourism at cultural sites, let's make this clear at the beginning. There were issues, and especially at World Heritage sites, over-tourism was a growing concern in large historic urban cities and high-profile World Heritage sites, like with what we see here at the Great Wall of China and also below in Barcelona and Park Güell. I mean, over-tourism was a major issue for the communities that were living there. The demands on the sites were affecting their physical integrity and their representation. There were major environmental impacts caused by the ever-expanding tourism industry. Air, water, soil, all sorts of other factors were being impacted by it. You also had circumstances like in Venice and Florence, and other major cities where visitors' inconsiderate behavior affected the experience of other tourists, as well as locals' quality of life. There was also significant economic leakage from destinations where the tour companies who brought people there didn't always leave the resources or the financial benefits to accrue at the local communities. There were other issues in terms of where that money was actually going. And finally, with the development of these over-touristed sites, you're starting to see an increasingly unaffordable cost of living and limited housing options for the original residents who live there. Now, when we start talking about the global tourism impacts from COVID-19, there has been a drop of tourism by 65% during the first half of 2020, and that's international tourism. This represents a loss of 440 million international arrivals, and almost $500 billion in export revenues. This is from the UN World Tourism Organization. The projected return to 2019 levels in terms of tourist arrivals internationally would take between 2.5 to 4 years. So we're talking revenues, we're talking volume, we're talking about a number of other factors. As a consequence, millions of livelihoods are lost, impacting progress on the Sustainable Development Goals. The revenue, the desire, the intentions are focused elsewhere at this point. Finally, the reflexive environmental quality improvements in local communities are also, that's at least the one positive aspects that's coming out of this. Think of you've heard of the dolphins returning to the lagoon in Venice. You've heard of air quality in the larger cities like Beijing, Delhi, other large cities around the world that have World Heritage Sites. And so, there have been some positive aspects, but overall, as we've seen, there have been major economic and sustainable livelihood impacts on those communities. Now, UNESCO has put together a chart that many of you may have seen. It's their World Heritage COVID Monitor. And basically, it's set up to give an undertaking and understanding of the World Heritage Sites that are open and accessible to visitation and those that are not. The light blue is partially open, representing 26%. Red are those that are closed. You see many of them in Asia and in Africa as well. And the sites that are open, which are mostly in Europe, represents about 36%. So that's the map right now as of the end of August, but UNESCO does update that on a monthly basis. Now, that being said, ICOMOS and partners are responding in terms of some of the key issues and concerns that these communities have. As I mentioned before, the ICTC has been updating its draft International Sustainable Cultural Tourism Charter. We've refocused it to ensure that sustainability is a key element to it, and we want it to reflect more risk-based approaches to climate change, pandemics, natural disasters, and conflicts. This has been agreed upon with the work that we're doing with ICOMOS right now, and we're in the process of having that approved at ADCOM moving forward in terms of the structure. But basically, we are trying to make sure it is more risk-oriented. There's also been the creation of a UNESCO Task Force on Culture, Tourism, and COVID-19, focused on recovery, resiliency, and rejuvenation of destinations. And there are associated webinars that are being organized in conjunction with the World Heritage Center and our advisory body partners, ICROM, IUCN, and ourselves. Our partner organization, the Organization of World Heritage Cities, has developed operational guidelines for member cities, guidelines for sustainable cultural tourism out of their European office. So again, that's a good example of an approach that can be taken from an urban standpoint. And finally, the United Nations World Tourism Organization's ALULA Framework for Inclusive Community Development through Tourism was just released as of 3 weeks ago at World Tourism Day on September 27th. So again, a lot of documentation that is there as people try to grapple and better understand and deal with the circumstances that come from the issues emanating from COVID and tourism. Now, there are risks for cultural tourism, and this is some of the things to think about as we're moving forward. There is the economic risk of tourism never returning to the same levels of growth to sustain local visitor economies. All that investment in infrastructure, marketing, employment, training, all those other factors might not be realized in future. There's the social risk of the loss of key employment sector and the ability to support other sectors. And in many countries, tourism can represent between 50 to 80% of the local economy that helps supports education, health, infrastructure, all those other factors that depend upon the revenues and taxes from those endeavors. Environmentally, there's a risk of the loss of biodiversity and having funds necessary to make the necessary infrastructural improvements. In a number of World Heritage Sites in Africa, for example, there has been the inability to pay the rangers and the people who monitor the national parks and protected areas there. This has, in effect, impacted the biodiversity and the megafauna species that are there, that are dependent upon tourism to help sustain their numbers and their protection from poaching. Finally, there's a cultural risk of diminished revenues to preserve and maintain sites and the associated communities, landscapes, and of course, the traditions that support them. Sorry to say, but from an economic standpoint, it is necessary sometimes to have that financial support to maintain the crafts, to maintain the intangible cultural heritage, to maintain other factors that are necessary to continue on in some communities. Now, this is my last slide, and when we're looking for support from ISCs for cultural tourism, there is, from a standpoint, there's a lot of things going on in this world right now, and as the image on the right shows, the coronavirus is the smallest of maybe others we have to deal with, like the economic crisis, climate, biodiversity, and human extinction. That's a little bit of an elaboration, but I think it sort of represents that well. It's important to recognize that there is discussion underway in cultural and natural heritage communities on how to rethink and recover post-COVID-19 tourism. There is sort of an integration between that sort of a shared practice approach. It's important to remember from an ISC standpoint that tourism involves and generates risk for all 27 ISCs to a degree, whether it's the revenue to preserve buildings, the use of that site and the amount of tourists who have impacts upon it, or any other number of factors that are important to recognize that we have underpinning relationships whether COVID is present or not. We also have to find ways to identify, to jointly reduce, mitigate, or adapt to risk to and from tourism affecting tangible and intangible cultural heritage. I think this is really important from a communications and a working standpoint to better understand where we come from at a cultural tourism level, but also at the same time, how we can support the work and initiatives of our fellow ISC members. Finally, it should be recognized that COVID is part of an extended change of human circumstance, including climate change and biodiversity loss. Again, going back to this image, but recognizing that risks are starting to become more prevalent in our work, and there are going to need to be ways that we can identify resiliency, recovery, maintenance of the field of the structures and the intangible and tangible cultural heritage that we have moving forward, of which COVID is just one of the first major markers right now, with unfortunately a number of others to come. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Fergus, and for your excellent presentation and mentioned many important issues, which not only in your ISC, but also all the human environment. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
Let's go to the next speaker, President of ISCES plus CC, Peter Cox. Peter?
Thank you, Alex. Sorry, Fergus is still sharing his screen, so I can't turn on my. There we go. So I go to Window, and sorry, Alex, can you share my presentation and I'll talk to it?
Peter, can you share your PowerPoint on your site?
No, I can't seem to get into it. And sorry,
Okay.
I have nobody here to help me that's younger than I am.
I can help you later, okay? Maybe, Chris, are you there? Chris?
Yes, can you hear me, Alex?
Well, for you to make your presentation, and in the meantime, sure. I can help Peter, okay?
Okay, sure.
Sure, okay. So our next speaker is Chris Marison, the president of ICOMOS. Okay, Chris, please. Yes.
Thank you. Can you see my screen now, Alex? Okay.
Yeah.
You can see that? Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Alex and Patrick. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody today, and thank you everybody who's online. I think this is a great opportunity for us to all continue to be working together, and a lot of very interesting things going forward. And thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak with you for a little bit. In terms of ICOMOS ICOR, we're the International Committee on Risk Preparedness and promote the protection of cultural heritage places from the effects of disasters, climate change, and armed conflict. A few things that we get involved with are collaborating with international, national, and NGOs with regards to disaster risk management. We do a lot in terms of capacity building related activities. We get involved with identifying and undertaking reviews and scientific research, particularly with regards to disaster risk management and climate change and armed conflict. And also get involved a lot with Blue Shield. We are ICOMOS's representatives in terms of the Blue Shield organization and have several members involved with that as well. And look at helping to coordinate and bringing together some of the resources within ICOMOS when there are disasters such as Haiti and Nepal and the recent disaster in Beirut as well. So just kind of quickly to go through breaking this down into capacity building, project integration, resource development, and creating awareness. To give you a few examples of some of the things that we've been involved with, one of the things is capacity building, and I think we probably all find it important just trying to target a number of different people. It's the occupants of these buildings that are involved with disaster management, and not just the owners and architects and engineers. But also, local authorities and the emergency responders. They're obviously so important to be involved in the pre-planning and helping to try to limit the impacts of disasters. And they're obviously the ones that are involved with response and recovery. So engaging them as much as we can early on is very important, and getting those conversations going are all very important parts of capacity building and being able to work together to have a successful disaster risk management plan. We also have been involved internally with capacity building, as well as just the external part. We had a webinar a few months back with regards to trying to explore opportunities and conversations within ICOR with regards to where we may be able to have an impact and be effective and help to move that conversation forward. We've also been involved internally with the recent course that's been going on in Argentina with regards to climate change, which has been very successful there and fantastic. What they've been doing, and obviously with regards to this 6 ISC meeting in the last one as well too. Recently, with regard to the fires in Notre Dame and the fire in Nantes Cathedral and several others around the world, we've been talking and working with IWC, the Wood Heritage Committee, as well as Prairie-Co, and we actually put in a resolution with regards to protecting historic buildings and structures and sites from fires for this current General Assembly, and been working closely with them and looking forward to doing more of that as well too, with the crossovers there. We also get involved with a lot of projects and just touching on, integrating what it is that we do in terms of disaster risk management and working with people and trying to come up with plans that looking at using local knowledge and indigenous resources and materials and what we may have available to come up with an effective, long-term, sustainable solution for that. Also on the response and recovery side, there's several people within ICOMOS that are significantly involved with the response, both in terms of helping on the life safety side of things, but also in terms of looking at stabilizations and protection of contents and so forth. And several members within ICOR, as well as some of the other ISCs, have been heavily involved with that, but trying to go in after these events have happened, whether Haiti, Nepal, as well as Beirut. Dr. Zainab Gul-Nal was recently in Beirut with ICOMOS representatives to try to see where, again, we can assist either locally and or remotely in terms of helping them to recover. One of the other things is just really trying to focus as well in terms of Build Back Better and the recovery side of things, and just where can we use traditional knowledge and indigenous knowledge, and making sure that we're not forgetting about that, because there is a tremendous amount to be learned. There's a tremendous value there. I mean, we can see a couple of things here in terms of disaster risk management after the earthquakes in Haiti, for instance, and the gingerbread houses and how well they survived. What is it that we can learn and integrate that as we go forward and Build Back Better? To in Ayutthaya and understanding, you can see in the small picture here, that they actually had floodgates around Ayutthaya to protect the city back, even in the 1600s, to indigenous knowledge with the pre-burning, whether it was the Native Americans, First Nations, or the Aborigines in Australia. There was a lot that actually used to go on, and they knew and understood fire and growth in forests, the importance of that. And now we can see obviously what's happening with the wildfires around the world, that we need to go back and understand that further at this point in time. We also get involved a lot with resource building and developing a lot of different guides. And as you may have seen, ICOR on the Road was actually started a couple of years ago and led by Dr. Zainab Gul Unal, who's I think on episode 6 at this point. And these are very, very interesting if you haven't seen them, but trying to bring some attention to post-disaster recovery and doing small, some 3 to 30-minute videos on this. And looking to just bring this to a conclusion more, there's lots of opportunities, and it's fantastic that Alex and Patrick have pulled this together and that we're all here today. I think this is, again, just kind of the tip of things and where we can go. I think it great. I mean, just exploring, looking at this in terms of, where us as individual scientific committees can have impacts and inputs to a lot of the other scientific committees. And I think that this is kind of a stepping off point to further help us with regards to that. And just 2 specific instances to give you an idea on this. One was just on the prevention mitigation side. We had been involved with a project in Asia where actually the Ministry of Tourism had engaged, and they were supporting and had signs for no smoking around this particular site, and basically had provided those, which was important in terms of seeing the engagement of the tourism community on the side of disaster management. And I say that because they, obviously if there is nothing left of the site, for instance, if there were a fire, that obviously directly impacts them and they have a vested interest in that. But just having them being another set of eyes, to watch and making sure, for instance, people are not smoking, or even if there is an event during the time that they're there, they're tremendous in terms of crowd management and being able to move people around and being able to help in the evacuations and so forth. So there's opportunities, for instance, in terms of engaging with them more on that part of it and helping to engage the tourism industry and helping protect these sites. And another one we've heard from Mario and Stratus, thankfully, earlier from SEPA, and just looking at following a disaster on the response and recovery side. This is a Brazil National Museum, and you may have seen some of the pictures. There was pretty much everything in the museum that could burn had burned, and just wondering why and how this happened. A lot of my background is in fire, so those at least to me were the questions coming up. But Google had actually gone in and gone through the museum and documented this just a few years earlier. So it was interesting just looking at the documentation that was there from kind of a forensics and a cause and effect perspective, and just seeing, kind of from what can burn and why did the fire get so large, thinking it's just a museum and the exhibits aren't that large, but looking at, is there wood construction in here, looking at the different exhibits and the materials and how well that can burn. Looking at how the fire can move through the space and just seeing, there's doors, some are propped open, some just have plain windows and glass that can break relatively easy and early on in a fire, and just looking at moving from one floor to a next and seeing, we have large open stairways for the fire to be able to move between those. And then just even to the point of detection, did we have anything? And you can see in some of the photographs that yes, there was, hopefully it was operational, but there was actually were detectors and fire extinguishers in those. So just in concluding, I think there's lots of opportunities, there's lots of crossovers and helping each other. I think it's fantastic, and the resource that we're put together that we'll talk about in terms of the couple of pages document in terms of kind of a summary of this. I think 2 other things I think to just think about in conclusion was just I think it may be of interest to just look at from the other side. We do a lot of things in terms of developing documentation, and I think on the end user side, whether it's national committees, working groups, members, whether it's site managers, what at the end of the day is very, very helpful to them. What would be useful in terms of how and formatting that we end up developing. and understanding what are the needs there and what are the opportunities, and are the things that we develop being read, are they being used? And I think the other thing too is just, why not things in terms of disaster risk management being addressed at times or to the degree that may be needed. And I think, by understanding some of this, I think that this would help guide us in terms of how we go forward, and being able to provide things that are as effective as they can be. And the last thing was just looking at, the thought of also kind of a guidance document that helping to communicate or identify ways that we can help, again, whether it's the national committees or working groups or others, and just, whether it's national committees and being engaged with local code development and engaging in terms of disaster management and making sure that those things are properly addressed, or whether it's reviews of World Heritage sites, and just that disaster management is being appropriately taken care of and things like that. But I think helping for us to identify it instead of just saying develop a disaster risk management plan. I mean, what does that mean to some of these different groups and entities? I think would be helpful too. So with that, I would just like to thank you again, and thank you very, very much, Alex and Patrick, for all your time and efforts. I think this has been tremendous in terms of what you've done and have done in bringing us all together. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris, for your very, very, very excellent presentation. You mentioned the importance of DRM, and there should be much more and more participation, and to make more opportunity to working together for the capacity building. And also in the final, the proposed for the next step is very, very interesting. So thank you so much. And now let's go back to Peter Cox, and we already found your PowerPoint, and now it's your turn. And but we have to help you manually in Taiwan. Yes. So please, when you want to change next slide, please let us know.
Well, that will please Mario with technology. Huh?
Okay.
Yes, sorry. The ICOMOS ISCES, which is the ISC for Energy and Sustainability, was really came out of the ADCOM meeting that was hosted by ICOMOS Ireland in 2010. And that followed European legislation in 2009 that really started driving the whole idea of energy retrofitting our built environment. And most of the talk at that was about the concern of how was this going to actually affect heritage buildings. And so we, particularly the maladaptation in the name of sustainability. And unfortunately, we have seen a lot of that over the last 10 years. A motion was put forward and a work group was set up, and ICOMOS Ireland, ICOMOS France, and ICOMOS Belgium formed a working group. Next slide. So we produced a report in Beijing. In fact, that should be 2013, I think, and a new ISC was established. And we had enough evidence that this is a risk or was a risk, and we should have an ISC to look at the whole element of energy retrofitting, sustainability in our built heritage. And then we quickly understood that it is closely linked to climate change, that our underperforming buildings are producing CO2s that create climate change. And obviously climate change and its climate effect on our buildings, and particularly our monuments and World Heritage sites. So we effectively we decided we needed to get involved in research projects and policy groups. And we did that, and we were successful. And luckily enough, European funding was available, not directly to the ISC, but we were able to join groups that were funded by mainly the EU. And I'll cover some of those in a moment. But now the ISC has 65 international members, and we're about to have we had our AGM a couple of weeks ago, and we're getting more and more inquiries, and it's growing every year. And we have two very active mirror national scientific committees, one in Australia and one in Ireland. Next slide. So, this isn't showing. In my presentation, the photos come in at a different time. This is part of a study that we're involved in with the Fraunhofer Institute of Building Physics in Germany. And it's an early 18th century monastery where the government gave Fraunhofer a total wing of the complex called the cooperage, and a group of us got together to come up with how do we create a live laboratory. And you can just see the building in between the two bigger slides. But for instance, we've identified 12 of the major manufacturers of, sorry, no, can you go back? So we're working with manufacturers in developing new products that are suitable for insulating traditional buildings and heritage buildings. And you can see there, but there's actually 4 elevations of that building. And we're using a lime render with aerogel on one, lime render with cork on another, lime render with hemp on another, and then just a plain lime render, and we're monitoring the performance and the improvement in U values on that. Internally, we have decorated the building with various new products as well, not relatively new products like calcium board instead of gypsum, which is breathable, and then we're monitoring the relative humidity and temperatures and everything. And the beauty of working with someone like Fraunhofer is that they have access to all these widgets for recording. And we've been doing this now for about 3 years, so we've got an awful lot of information coming out from this live laboratory. Next slide. In cooperation, I'm also an active member of the Climate Change and Heritage Work Group, and I led the part 3 of Future of the Pasts, which was mitigation against climate change. And I think this is an excellent document, and it's certainly worth a good read. And it shows you that there is cooperation between other groups with us. Next slide. Life cycle analysis, we believe, is most important within the built environment, and looking at the basically resource depletion, pollution, and how do we make our buildings better. What we're finding now in the last couple of years is energy efficiency is being downplayed and carbon is coming to the fore. And what we should be really doing is looking at the carbon content of our buildings and how can we reduce carbon. And in cases like this, we could work with many of the other ISCs like CIAV, Steve's Escarsa, and we have already worked with the 20th century ISC, where we wrote a whole section on energy efficiency in 20th century buildings for the Madrid Delhi document. We've also contributed to the SIF training manual on energy efficiency in heritage and traditional buildings too. Next slide. This was a study that we did for Historic England, and it was looking at understanding carbon within the built environment. And we took a number of case studies, and all residence, small houses from I think 1820 up to about 1910. And what we did was did an assessment of the embodied carbon in the existing building as it is today. We then, and that's the kind of steep blue line, if you do nothing. The dotted blue line is we did a sympathetic energy, low carbon intervention to improve the energy efficiency. And then the dotted line is actually where we demolished the building, get rid of all the embodied carbon, and build a new building. And it takes 63 years to pay back the carbon of a new build versus the adaptive reuse of an existing building. And I think that gives us the proof going forward that we shouldn't be really demolishing buildings in order to build spanking new ones. NZEB is near zero energy buildings, and there's legislation right across Europe now for that, but it was based on operational carbon, not taking into consideration embodied carbon. And I think we need to really look at that. Next slide. So I'm also heavily involved in the SDG work group and have been, and this is just 6 of the goals that really come in across with our remit, if you like, which is education. We need to educate owners about what they have and how they operate their own houses or buildings, and also to train traditional skills and looking at particularly using traditional materials, and then sustainable and affordable energy for all cities and cultural heritage. Obviously, plastics, the construction industry is one of the biggest users of plastics. And then climate change, 13, and then cooperation, which is SDG 17. So there really is, and I confirm what everybody else has said, that we do need more cooperation, and perhaps COVID is teaching us how to do that by holding these sorts of meetings. Next slide. Next slide, Alex. Is there another slide? Okay, I sent you an updated one, but obviously that didn't get there. No, that's not a problem. It was actually, my last slide would have been talking about kind of loss and recording loss. We, on the west coast of Ireland, which is exposed to the Atlantic, we've seen some really important national monuments slide into the sea due to coastal erosion, and there are times when we will have to just look at that, and then using the likes of SEPA and others to record these properties before we lose them, I think is very important. So sorry, that's end of my talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for sharing. I apologize for we didn't put the latest presentation. So it's my fault.
No.
And the okay, for the we are a little bit behind the schedule, so we have to running faster. So our next speaker is Stephen Kelly, is the Secretary General of Escarsa. Stephen, please.
Thank you. I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen.
Yes.
Screen 1, screen 2, screen. Oh, okay. Let's see if it's this one. No. Ah. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. I'm presenting this morning on I'm a representative of Escarsa. I'm the Emeritus Secretary General. We have a new bureau now, so I'm speaking for a lot of different people. Escarsa was established in 1996. We have about 120 members. And we are composed of technical people, engineers, architects, scientists, and we deal with the structural and technical aspects of conservation, protection, rehabilitation, and enhancement of structures of architectural heritage. We don't often lead teams, but we are always involved with multidisciplinary teams. And I was quite gratified listening to these presentations this morning to see that we have had Escarsa members on the ground in Bagan, in Kathmandu, in Haiti, in Nepal, in the Philippines, and also in Peru, which is what Claudia is going to be presenting after me. So we've been involved with not only through ICOMOS, but we've been involved with the Getty, with the World Monuments Fund, and with the Global Heritage Fund. So we're definitely collaborators. Very quickly, this is the new bureau of Escarsa. Some of the objectives of the Escarsa would include the promotion of international cooperation. So this has kind of been one of the flags that we fly, is that we like to cooperate with other people. We have established principles, the Escarsa Principles, which were ratified in 2003. It's a wonderful short document, which I personally have turned it into a class that I teach, that is a full 1 semester class. So there's really a lot of good things there, not just for engineers, but for architects and conservators. We're also working on guidelines, and I'm going to touch that briefly. We like to gather, study, and disseminate knowledge and information. We organize and participate in the organization of international training groups. I'm going to show some of those to you. We promote the cooperative work with other scientific communities of ICOMOS, and we provide expertise of qualified professional specialists. We have our own expert database, which is a Google Doc, and so it's very easy for us to find precisely the best person or people to collaborate with other ISCs. We publish a lot. We publish a lot of peer-reviewed magazines and journals. This is the Eskarsa Newsletter. These are very long newsletters that have they're not just newsy, but they include long peer-reviewed articles, peer-reviewed and footnoted articles. If you haven't seen them, they're posted on the ICOMOS website, and please take a look. Some of our accomplishments are we've got the principles and we're working on the guidelines. We've got the newsletter. We have our expert database, and these are some of our annual workshops. In 2017, we had an inter-ISC meeting in Seoul, Korea, and in the southern parts of Korea and some of their World Heritage sites. We met in conjunction with ICOMOS Korea, the National Research Institute of Cultural Heritage, ISCS, and IIWC. And with all of our endeavors, you can see in the lower right-hand corner is the peer-reviewed publication that we all wrote articles, and which were written in English and translated into Korean. And so that's what we did in Korea. In 2018, we had another inter-ISC meeting in Kastamonu, Turkey, where we had people from Iskia, ICOR, and SIPA were all present, and we once again we had proceedings from that meeting, the proceedings of the inter-ISC 2018. And finally, in October of 2018, we had a workshop that we held in Tehran, Iran, and we had a full day of meetings which were translated into Farsi. And then we had a study tour. We actually broke into two groups. So I was in a group that went through Western Tehran, Western Iran, and then we had another group that went into Eastern Iran. The work we all wrote peer-reviewed papers that were part of the training program, which are presently being translated into Farsi, and we're hoping that that publication is going to come back out in early 2021. Obviously, these are the types of things that we're not doing right now because of the pandemic, and we're hoping that we can figure out better ways to do this in the future because of the pandemic. And finally, we are working on guidelines, and our guidelines are kind of like a commentary to the Escarsa Principles. And we had a meeting of this group in Barcelona in 2018, and we've got about 30 people working on these guidelines. This work has slowed down considerably because of the pandemic, but we're hoping to find a way to continue with this and to possibly get that before the ICOMOS Scientific Council by 2021 or 2022. Just a mention about global climate change and over tourism. If you look at this graphic on the left, I like to use this when I'm talking about all the different forces that we have to deal with when we're looking at a building. And as I said before, we're a very technical committee. We get involved in some advocacy, but not very much. We do almost everything that we do is it's very technical and scientific. And we know that built heritage is a static element placed in a dynamic landscape. So every built heritage that we make it's static, but everything around us is changing all the time. Rivers change paths. Floods leave deposits, as we saw after Hurricane Katrina. Land masses can actually move. Barrier islands off the coasts of continents, they're constantly moving. That which is frozen will thaw, as we're seeing in northern Canada, and the ocean levels are presently rising. Now, how does that change with this graph that we're looking at on the left? How does that change? It doesn't. And what happens is we still have these factors that we need to look at. So in Escarsa, we still have valid tools that, of course, the variables are always changing, but we have the tools to continue to look at our built heritage in our ever-changing world, be it with global climate change or from over-tourism. And in closing, these are some of the recommendations that I came up with. And of course, I'm always thinking about what we can do now, not what we can do in the next 5 years. The pandemic, though it's tragic, is only going to be temporary. But global climate change, increased tourism, those things are going to stay with us for a long time. The pandemic has provided us with an opportunity, and hope that we can find a way that we can seize on that opportunity. The playing field has been leveled and makes for a more equitable transfer of knowledge by those who previously would not have the financial situation to attend a physical meeting. all of us have these meetings once a year or twice a year, and whoever can buy the ticket will show up. And what that means is members from developing countries will never actually meet them, or we have our emerging professionals who may not have the financial wherewithal to join us. All of that has changed. So we have an opportunity to include all of those people that we've always wanted to include, but the fact of the matter is whoever can buy the ticket is going to be there. So I think that we should encourage the spirit of collaboration rather than the spirit of territoriality. And I think all of us know what I mean when I say territoriality. We all have our little group, and we like to keep things into our little group, and we have to start thinking about this differently. Let's really try to encourage this spirit of collaboration. What I'd like to see happen maybe in the next 1 to 2 months, because we've been offered this tool by ICOMOS to have webinars. We should set up a series of webinars to discuss those topics that are of mutual interest and benefit. And these webinars should be opened up not to all of us gray hairs that are sitting here, but to our emerging professionals. And this is what I would like to see happen in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen, and the very impressive presentation. And we can find not only from your side, but also from Chris or from Statos, from the other panelists they all mentioned, try to collaborate or provide what we can do and what we will like to contribute, and many excellent ideas. Maybe we can discuss later. Thank you for your very excellent presentation, Stephen. Thank you. And now let's go to the final presentation from our panelist is Claudia from Escarsa. Claudia?
Thank you, Alex and Patrick. My name is Claudia Cancino, and I'm an architect from Peru, and I work as a senior project specialist at the Getty Conservation Institute. So I'm going to try to share my presentation. See. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Well, first, I would like to thank the organizers of this 6th International Scientific Joint Meeting and the opportunity to present the work done for the period of 2017 and 2020 by the seismic team of the International Scientific Committee on Earth and Architectural Heritage, known as ISCHA. These are going to be the different parts of my presentation. So ISCHA has 143 members from 44 countries covering all continents. It has 5 teams of work: Earth and Architecture in Use, Earth and Archaeology, Technology for the Conservation of Earthen Sites, Earth and Architectural Cultural Landscape, and what we just call Seismic, that has the objective to research ancient, historic, and new tools and techniques for the proper protection, monitoring, and retrofitting of earthen heritage located in seismic areas. The ISCHA seismic team is composed by 16 members from New Zealand, Bolivia, USA, Peter, the UK, Peru, Chile, Portugal, Italy, Malta, India, Argentina, and Germany. We also have an invited member, Kai West, from Nepal. At the beginning of 2017, we decided to address one of the problems threatening earthen sites on seismic regions and presented a proposal. One of the main problems of earthen architecture is its vulnerability to earthquakes. This is a map of the seismic regions of the world, and I have overlapped the regions where Earth and heritage is located. As you can see, seismic events are a current threat to Earth and historic sites. This was the case of the citadel of Bam in Iran after the 2003 earthquake. But an additional problem to the severe damage displayed on the right of this slide is the fact that once an earthquake happens, where the Earth and heritage is located, several national and international organizations just ran to the affected sites. Some of these international missions, like the one presented in the upper part of the slides, where international experts prepare the nomination of the citadel of Bam as a World Heritage Site even after the earthquake to request proper support and financial assistance, are quite useful. Unfortunately, other missions are not coordinated, they duplicate efforts and try to start from zero for the site assessment and the policies to inform different national stakeholders about how to protect their sites. That was the case, for example, of the 2007 Pisco earthquake in Peru, as you can see on the pictures on the lower side of your slide. Even worse, missions end up with their own conclusions and got published in proceedings or scientific journals without the approval and revision of the colleagues working on the sites. So in most of the cases, the information collected didn't even help the site. Because of that, and taking into consideration that we only had 3 years of voluntary work, the team proposed to collect and make public the already existing post-earthquake assessment forms and develop do and don't do post-earthquake guidelines for the preservation of earthen sites located in seismic areas. The objectives of these two tasks were the one listed in these slides. So our first task started with the collection of post-earthquake assessment forms. Cindy Calvi-Monti started biographical research while she was a Getty intern for the period of 2018 to 2019. All the information collected was then placed at the Getty box and shared with the rest of the site team members for their input. Cindy also developed an annotated bibliography as well as a comparative chart between the different publications found. The research collected 3 types of publications: books or theses, articles, and forms, which covered mainly 2 topics: rapid visual screening and assessment to address the site vulnerabilities. Regarding the forms, the rest of the members of the team have suggested to pre-select 5 of them, differentiate them between the forms to fill out immediately after the earthquake and the ones that you can perform a structural assessment at any time, and post them, the selected ones, with a text to explain the context and objective of each form. Additionally, the members suggest to include, and this probably will happen in the next period, forms to address different types of buildings as well as different earthen construction techniques. Here are some interesting examples, like the one developed in Colombia, the FEMA form P154, the structural assessment form developed by the Getty as part of its SRP project. We also found a form developed after the 2017 earthquake in Mexico, and also the famous forms of the churches and palaces developed by the Dipartimento de la Protezione Civile in Italy after the L'Aquila earthquake. Ecuador has also developed 2 forms as part of the NEC 2015 construction norm. One is for rapid assessment, and the second one is for the vulnerability assessment of historic buildings. The Pontificia Universidad Católica del Perú has also developed a form to post-earthquake evaluation of earthen churches. And Chile has developed a quite extensive manual as well as a post-earthquake damage assessment form. The second task developed by the seismic team was to create an easy-to-read document that will explain to public officials and the community what to do and not to do after an earthquake. I should also say and acknowledge the fact that this was an idea from Kai Weiss from Nepal, so it's really his idea, not ours. I just thought that we would try it on earthen sites first. Valerio Sabatini started a bibliographic research while he was a Getty intern for the period of 2019-2020. In his case, he not only collected 16 samples, but also drafted the content of the now called DADAE guidelines. Furthermore, he also researched graphically interesting fact sheets to use as reference for design. The second task developed by the seismic team was to create this is this is some of the content of the do and don't do guidelines. And I apologize that you actually cannot see or cannot read it carefully to time restrictions of these presentations. But these guidelines are divided into a set of actions about what to do and not to do before and in preparation for an earthquake, which I consider the most important ones. And we can see, for example, that it's recommended to develop a recovery plan and inform that plan to different stakeholders, so they are aware that there is a plan in place when an earthquake hits. Regarding the actions to take, regarding the actions to take immediately after the earthquake, they are mostly related to take control of the situation and carry on proper assessment of the damaged sites before deciding what to do with each of them. It also involves, to implement temporary protective measures for the construction, fencing, tarps for rain protection, etc. Finally, the long-term actions to carry out after an earthquake are also as important as the previous one. For example, this is when vulnerability assessment are carried out with the data of the recent earthquake, when experts should design a set of repairs and retrofitting techniques, when constructors are selected to implement them, and for the latter, simple things as required involvement of heritage professionals as permanent staff of the construction companies make a huge difference. Finally, keeping the different stakeholders informed is also quite important in these three phases. So what are the next steps of this work and how we can find areas to collaborate with other international scientific committees, particularly during the COVID times? Video conferences have become daily activities for most of us, and they have brought an opportunity to reach more colleagues. Before COVID, for example, the seismic group could only meet in person, and we communicate only via email. Now I can actually contact them at least once a month. The same can be done with members of other international scientific groups like Escarsa, ICORP, and UNESCO, and with other international scientific committees interested in working with us. As next steps, the seismic team will now select 5 forums and consult with the rest of the ISCIA members. We then would like to create a working group with members of Escarsa, ICORP, and UNESCO to review the selected forms and post them on the ISCIA website. For the DADAE guidelines, we would like to review the content with the working group, finalize it, and then send it for design. Once it is ready, we will ask ICOMOS to post the guidelines on the website and or disseminate them internationally to heritage authorities. As future work, we would like to discuss the development of an ISCIA form and translate both the ISCIA form and the DADAE guidelines into other languages. As 2 new pieces of work that can also be in collaboration with other international scientific committees are the development of 2 glossaries, one about structural damage on earthen sites due to seismic events, and another one of suitable, that means tested, modeled, implemented, and monitoring retrofitting techniques for earthen sites. I do hope this is something that also other committees could be interested, and I am open to further discussion regarding collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. It's a very, very nice presentation, and also you provide very useful tools for not only for the assessment of the damages, but also the do or not to do after the earthquake. It's very, very useful and helpful tools, and looking forward to much more cooperative opportunity with you. And of course, I think the other IC will have same thought as I am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm really looking forward for the input of the other scientific committees on these two tasks.
Yeah, thank you. So now let's end the second session of the presentation of 6 panelists. Even though we are about 37 minutes delayed, but I think due to the excellent presentation from the different ISC, so I have to move forward quickly. So next section is the comment, the feedback from our commenters. First of all, I would like to introduce Dr. Rohi. Rohi is of course you know him very well, now is the vice president of the ICOMOS, but also a very active person of the ICOP. So Rohi.
Thank you very much, Alex. First of all, I must thank all the presenters. I mean, it has been really a very stimulating time listening to all the 7 presentations. So I will very quickly pick up 5 points that I have kind of learned from these presentations, and I think we need to reflect on. First is like what it comes out very clearly is that we have to look at risk as an approach and not just focus only on one hazard or one kind of disaster, but what comes out very clearly is that there are multiple hazards. There is a very strong linkage with climate change. Even pandemic is connected. So we have to have a risk as an approach for heritage conservation and management, and how do we bring together our synergies so that we consider, as was put very eloquently by Fugos, the rare, the cumulative, and also the more common events. So that's the first point that I want to bring forward. The second point is really, I think it would be very useful to have a kind of matrix where we look at different kinds of mitigation techniques that we need to think about for different typologies of heritage. So what we have really been able to understand from these presentations is how we can have specific techniques that are more tailored for earthen heritage. Similarly, for other typologies of heritage, we should think about different techniques and then look at different hazards to which these techniques can become useful. So that would be also something that we can do as a further collaborative endeavor. The third part of that I would like to highlight is the important role that digital tools can play in documentation, and documentation which is not just pre-disaster documentation, but a documentation that can play a role in all phases of disaster. So how can we have a tool that can be useful before, but also in emergency stages, and also in the post-disaster phase? So how can we have a kind of a system in place that uses all the kind of tools that are available now, that connects this kind of pre-disaster information that is very useful after a disaster. So that kind of area of further research is definitely something that we need to think about. The fourth point, which I would like to take back from these presentations, is really about the importance of integrating biological hazards in disaster risk management, or rather the overall risk management. It seems like we haven't paid much attention to biological hazards in our risk management strategies, and although this is an unfortunate event, but it has provided us all these lessons that how important it is to then look at biological hazards also as part of our overall integrated disaster risk management strategy, which essentially also means that we cannot look at biological hazards in isolation, but have to see them more as part of the other kind of hazards that might happen. For example, there could be an earthquake along with an epidemic, as has happened in Croatia, or there are cyclones that has happened in Bangladesh and in India when the pandemic is going on. So it's important to also, as was very nicely put forward by in the presentations, we need to also think about this new area of how do we manage disasters and other kind of risks in lockdown and post-lockdown phase. There's a lot of scope to really put in place some procedures and guidelines that can help in the future. And the last point that I want to really make is I think it's very critical, and we have and has been brought forward also in these presentations, is the importance of sustainable tourism, which is so critical even in situations like what we are facing right now. So how can we have a tourism strategy that also looks at post-disaster situations, and how are we going to recover back? Are we going to go back to the same kind of tourism as we used to have before? Or this teaches us a lesson that we need to diversify the kind of options that we need to bring forward in terms of coming out of this pandemic and then recovering from it. So I feel that the presentations really bring us this important issue to think about as well. So really a very, very interesting, thought-provoking, stimulating presentations, and I thank all the presenters and Alex for putting it all together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rohi. You highlight the importance, the 5 issues you mentioned, and I think the last one you think about how to build up the resilience and how to build back better, not only after the normal disaster, but also the COVID-19. I think we all have to think about it. Okay, our next, let's welcome our next commentator, Professor Peter Xu from National Jiao Tong University in Taiwan. Peter.
Good morning, some of you, and good evening to the others. Bertrand Russell mentioned once, the only thing that will redeem mankind is cooperation. And today we have heard cooperation as well as the platform from Marios and the Stratos. And what we trying to do here is build a platform for collaboration. And I'm Peter Xu from Taiwan. And I think with a platform, with a sufficient good platform, where we can enhance our communication skill among our communities. And the system I would like to introduce to you is the Asian Network of Industrial Heritage. And this platform trying to link or make the bridge from Asia to the world. And under this structure, right now, we have 4 working groups. And first one will be the theory and interpretation. The second one, education and inheritance. And the third one is publication and promotion. And the last one will be the discovery and inventory. And this platform has been established in the March 31st of 2018. And this is followed the teacher's Taipei Declaration. And this platform is actually established and it's under operation, maybe preliminary, but has some timeline functions. And right now, it's basically serving as a documentation and also an announcement platform for all the activities, and including the field work held in 2019 and the virtual meetings this year. And we're also looking forward to hold other materials and documentations in the future. And that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Professor Peter Xu. Sorry. Yes. Thanks, Professor Peter Xu. And I'm very sure there are besides this, any platform in Taiwan, there are many different or similar platforms all over the world which will focus on the conservation of the cultural heritage. Then how to integrate those platforms together is a challenge for all of us. Thank you, Peter, for your introduction. And so our next commenter is Professor Takeyuki Okubo. In Japan, he is the chair professor of UNESCO Chair Program on Risk Management. And Professor Okubo.
Thank you very much, Alex. So may I share my screen? And also thank you so much for all of the presenters. So I'm very moved to see in detail about your activities for future. And, okay. Yeah. Can you see? Okay. So this is just a personal image of collaboration with 6 ITC's teams in disaster risk management cycle for cultural heritage. So it's this basic figure is developed by the UNESCO Chair Program, supported by the Professor Rohit and so on. And I'm sorry, but this is just a personal image for sharing the opportunity and way of joint working with each important international teams. And you know, most of the disasters should be divided into 3 parts: so beforehand and during the disasters and after the disasters. Of course, it's different in each cases of type of disasters. Professor Rohit already mentioned about that. But for example, in the scene of the beforehand, maybe ICOP can support the development of disaster risk management plan with identifying the risk associated with climate change, supported by the ISCES plus CC, like that. And in the case of during situations, maybe Escarsa can support the verification of safety for volunteers who use quick research tools, assessment form, and the DAE guideline produced by the ISCAH mentioned about the Claudia. And for example, in the scene of the after disaster, so maybe the SIPA can develop the data, and for the tourism, maybe so with Ictc, they can develop the virtual tour contents for business continuity for the site. So like that, so this is I believe that this opportunity is a starting point to discuss about those kind of the possible collaboration in between the ITCs for a future. And of course, in the same time, we should think about how to face the another types of disaster, like such as COVID-19 and so on. And Mr. Marion already said that. So we need a collaboration table to think about those kind of the collaboration work in detail. So that I'm very exciting to share this opportunity with you, all the presenters and commenters for the next step for near future. So I'm sorry, but this is just a comment. And thank you so much for Alex and team staffs to help this kind of the important workshop. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Okubo, and for this excellent collaboration frameworks ideas. So maybe we can discuss later. And our final commenter is Catherine Force from Australia in Sydney. It's very late in Sydney, I suppose. Catherine?
Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be here and to have this fantastic meeting. We would have been meeting here in Sydney at this time, and unfortunately we haven't been able to. But I actually think this meeting has been just such a valuable way of doing this. It's allowed so many more of us to actually get together than would have been possible in Sydney. And perhaps we can do this again in Sydney in 3 years' time. But it's my job to just give a very quick summary of what we've been talking about and to refocus on what we're trying to achieve this meeting. So heritage is under threat from natural and human disasters, fast and slow onset. And these are exacerbated by issues of poverty, climate change, over-tourism and global pandemic. And this is impacting our heritage, our communities, our livelihoods and biodiversity. Our various international scientific committees have a range of expertise, but they don't stand alone. They need to work together to be most effective. And therefore, and they work better when they're working in collaboration. It's more inclusive, it covers things more comprehensively, it's productive and innovative, and hopefully will bring a better outcome for heritage. Our 6 ISCs have expressed a desire to collaborate, and in fact they've shown many examples of successful collaborations up to this point, not just among themselves but with other ISCs and with other international issues and addressing big issues like human rights-based approaches, sustainable development, Indigenous heritage, climate change, disaster risk reduction and COVID. There are very good reasons for collaboration. It brings all the expertise and experience to the table. It provides different perspectives on the same problem and it's very inclusive rather than exclusive. No one has all the answers to complex situations that we're dealing with, and we can fill the gaps by working together and developing more holistic approaches and solutions and not duplicate work. We can support each other and share our information. Professor Kubo has shown us a diagram of the disaster risk management cycle, and he's shown where different ISCs might contribute. There's probably lots and lots of opportunities within that framework for the ISCs to support each other and support heritage and work together. How are we going to do this? That's the question from this meeting. And I think, and we need to collaborate with not just within this group, but with other ISCs, with the different working groups from ICOMOS. We need to involve our emerging professionals as well as our mid-career and even our senior professionals, because they come with a lot of expertise. We need to provide training and capacity development, which is now much more affordable because we can do it online and include everybody. We have lots of new tools, as Mario showed us, for recording, assessing risk, doing damage assessment, monitoring the condition of places, monitoring the activity of places. And I think if we had this COVID situation 20 years ago, we would have found it a lot more difficult to actually get together as we have done now. So we've just it's actually been a blossoming for ICOMOS in a way, because so many more people can actually be involved. And so I'd really like to thank Alex for organising this meeting and everybody who has contributed. There's a lot of expertise in this group, and I really look forward to working together. So I think some of the things so we've been presented with a challenge today. How are we going to work together? And I think by the end of this meeting, we need to have organised some sort of way of doing that, a framework of doing that, and some sort of action plan, and we need to have activities organised, a group that can set about developing that plan with representatives from all the ISCs, and then present activities over the next 12 months, and we can report on those when we all meet together in 1 year's time. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Now these four commenter has made their idea and feedback to the panelists, and some more information for all the participants. I have to say thank you for the other colleagues who joined us together via YouTube channel. And we have more than 100 participants. Even though we have 300 registered, maybe come and go. We have more than 300 and registered, and then now it's about online 100. And their discussion is many discussion, and they have their QA there. So it's very interesting. Now we have limited time, but we still like to have some question. And I suppose in the very beginning, I suppose we can collect some question from the YouTube, but it seems that they already discuss and answer each other on the YouTube. But however, we still try to collect. My colleagues has helped me to collect some questions. But are there any comment, remark, or question from the panelists or commenters?
Alex.
Yes, Mario. Yes.
Alex, I think it's very important that we establish this collaboration, but also it's important to use the channels of ICOMOS. So we have the Scientific Council happening on Monday, and many of our committees are going to be making presentations, including SIP and others. I think that we have to report on this meeting, and we have to report on the engagement that we have been formalizing, because other scientific committees will be present in that meeting, and they can feel attracted by this. And then Steve Brown, who's one of the co-chairs of the 2023 Sydney, is offering another meeting for the 6 ISCs and others. Okay, so we should talk about that.
Thank you for your idea, Mario. I'm very sure that the outcome of the 6 ISC will be reported in the incoming scientific committee. Also, Steve Brown already joined this joint meeting via the YouTube. So thank you for your idea. So are there any comment, remark, questions? Okay. Then maybe we have already 11 minutes.
Sorry, I just.
Sorry. Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that in those 2 little tasks that we have developed at ISCIA regarding the structural assessment forms and the guidelines on what to do and not to do after an earthquake. I mean, maybe this is something that I would be more than happy to collaborate. I mean, I mentioned it. We wanted to share it and get input to do it together with eCorp and Escarsa. So, I mean, I intend to communicate this to the presidents of those committees so we can move forward. And any other committee that would like to join, I think it will be even better. And thank you for organizing all this. Really, it's really impressive.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. I thank Claudia, and also I have to thank you. The Mario already helped us to this organizing committee of this 6 ISC joint meeting to feedback some QA on the YouTube. Thank you, Mario. And yes.
Before you go, I just want to praise your leadership in organizing this event and the previous event, and you have been taking the initiative, and you should be really acknowledged, you and your team. And we are hoping that you will take the challenge also in 2023 from now.
Thank you, Mario, for that. But I suppose the whole reason is I have a very strong backup from all of the colleagues from different ISC. Thank you so much. And the Stavros, the president of ICOMOS, asked me to collect all the presentation and upload to the Google Drive. I think it's without any doubt, no problem. And also we have to record the meeting, and also will be released to the public, no problems. And I have to thank you to all the authors who present their papers and excellent video and so on. So maybe I prepare. I have Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. One moment. Give me a second. My PowerPoint.
Alex, while we're waiting, just on behalf of ICO, we would all like to say thank you as well, too, for all of your efforts. And Patrick's, this is
thank you.
Fantastic. And continuing on from what you did before in Delhi over the last few years. I'd like to thank everybody and all the presenters and panelists and reviewers. And thank you, Professor Akubo, for a very informative graphic. I think being able to transmit or transfer the information in graphics like that is extremely important and helpful. And that's very, very useful. And Claudia, I'm very, very interested in continuing to be a part of your work. And it's just, again, great to have things that are extremely practical and short and to the point. I think, again, is just, those are the things that I think are going to get seen and understood and used. And I think, definitely very interested in helping support further and going forward. And I think it's just a great jumping off point as well, too, for looking at other types of events and doing things similar to that, I think would be very helpful to us all. So thank you very, very much for all of that, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. So, okay, to the final, I have a very, very short draft conclusion for to end this meeting. I have to highlight that it's a draft only. And in the beginning of this draft conclusion, I have to thank Rohi, Mario, and Catherine help the organizing teams to prepare this draft. And actually, before this meeting today, we already have 2 rehearsal meetings, and all the panelists and the commenter, we had discussed for many times and share the draft PowerPoint and revise them. And today we can have a very wonderful meeting to share our knowledges. And so as the shared technology and collaboration to meet our challenge on the advanced risk management for shared future. So the 6 ISC joint meeting has 7 advanced actions. As to, I think I don't want to read every words, for it's very late, but we have to develop some guideline toolkits and practical strategies to management the cultural heritage for further implementation and practitioners, and to establish frameworks for collaboration. And by the way, we have the others to establish a platform to invite other interested national committee and the ISC of ICOMOS to collaborate to organize the joint meeting, but also not only limited to the ICOMOS bodies, but also some other interesting NGOs outside the ICOMOS are also welcomed. And of course, to encourage the participation to emerging professionals to join scientific activities and various topics and related risk management or cultural heritage, and to achieve this our awareness, we have to elect or appoint some volunteer or ISC, such as maybe SIPA. I hope my SIPA colleague will not. Okay, forget it. To coordinate and above works to the end. By the end of the 2020, and so we have 9 main missions in for the next year in 2021, and we have to ensure all the ISC have emerging professional members, and that they are included in the following activities: forming organizing committees to oversee the collaboration of 6 ISC, to organize a joint meeting and identify the contributions, and that ISC could make the heritage risk management toolkits, to organizing joint online activities, which the other colleagues already mentioned, that we should much more working close together to enable knowledge sharing, can promote good practice in relation to risk management through the ICOMOS membership. And we have more. And to identify, reviewing, and updating our ICOMOS disaster risk management tool and guidance document, reviewing the other relevant document, presenting a joint report in a year, and we'll try to have our next joint meeting be held October 2021. I don't know, maybe. We'll try. And by the way, we have to special thanks to the ISC Urson, Claudia has presented to develop a wonderful toolkit to participation in the revision, the ICOMOS 1996 recording principle, which was made by SIPA. And so, in order to achieve the all about, we are looking forward to appoint an emerging professionals core team to organize a time frame. And thanks to Chris, already developed some possible table, and Professor Okubo already proposed frameworks to organize a number of online activities and produce the deliverable and organize a meeting in the fall, maybe October 2021. So this draft conclusion will be circulated to the 6 ISC for revision and announced very soon. And that is the draft conclusion of this meeting. So to the end, I have to say thank you to all of you, to colleagues,
Emerging professionals.
Mario, would you like to say something? Mario?
Thank you, Alex. Well, I was just chatting that we do have some offers from some emerging professionals already that chat on the YouTube, so maybe we can take their word for it. Okay. And
thank you so much. Toshi, would you like to say something?
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Again, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all panelists and the organizer, especially Alex, for this wonderful meeting. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Thank you so much. And I think this meeting is not the ending. It's just the starting point for the further collaboration together. And I do hope our voice can be repeat and repeat again in the 2 days later in the scientific committee meeting in ICOMOS, and in the coming year or the more we were working together. So thank you so much for your participation, and especially the colleagues from the YouTube. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Enjoy your day.
Good morning. Bye-bye. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you. And Chris, very excellent table. Yes.
Thank you, Alex, once again.
Yeah, thank you. You may go to your breakfast.
I know, exactly. Now you can get some sleep for a while for the next couple of weeks.